So let's scoot here. You guys can get. So, Todd Jones, one of the founders of TGR, and we thank them every year for their creative endeavors. These kind of projects, by the way, they're wow. Talk about Herculean efforts. This one goes down probably as one of the most challenging ones. Safe to say.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, we have check. Yeah, we sold the series to HBO before COVID hit, and we had this perfect plan. We were going to do a 4-film series and travel to multiple different locations and shoot it, and then COVID hit, and we ended up delayed 18 months. All 4 locations we ended up going to were pivoted and became different ones based on where we could get into, but it was time to get back on the road. So that the COVID challenge was unbelievably challenging, and then just the trip itself and the mission and the warm temps and the Avies. I mean, the boat ride was supposed to be 24 hours. It turned into a week. We were running out of food on the boat, and it was and then the Ben and Griffin and the guys and Elena did the march into the mountains, and they had a tiny window to get in before the blizzard. I mean, I think you saw it all in the film, but it was it just right to the bitter end. It was we were like, are we going to pull this off? Are we going to succeed?
And I know Jeremy, your brother's well known for loving the struggle. But I know Griffin, you're also a big proponent. If it's easy, why do it? So I know you were a big part of the push of this project. Maybe talk about the impetus and zones where you were looking at, and what fueled you to want to do something like this.
Yeah, to Todd's point, he came along kind of like, where's the wildest place you can think of to go? And I think we started in China, and then went to Nepal and Argentina, Antarctica, BC, and then finally Alaska, all because of COVID. And so it was this really drawn out process, but it's also such a great exercise in just searching for those locations. And like the hit list I have now from this whole experience could last a lifetime. And yeah, those difficult days when you're dragging a sled and you kind of have to get to camp are character building, to say the least. But
yeah, and Griffin did the research when we sold the series to HBO. We hired Griffin because he's a Google Map planner, and basically sent him out to go talk to the most badass adventure athletes in the world and see what was on their tick list. So the list of like crazy things people want to do in our office, in our files, is huge now, and so Griffin was not only a massive part of this episode, but he helped really research and develop all the locations for the series as a whole, which was cool.
And what you alluded to earlier before we came on stage here is that you have a treasure trove of all these places. So we can expect more greatness from TGR and all things in the future. Yeah, that's very exciting news there. I want to talk about the filming. I think as viewers, we take it for granted when we see these movies, and especially, but when you take the remoteness of something like this to capture the images, and you guys nailed it out of the park. Maybe talk about some of the challenges and maybe some of the harrowing moments and experiences to get those visuals.
Well, wait a second. I should let Ben talk about all that stuff, but because I was definitely like a bit of an interloper on this for sure. Okay. As like a kind of like a commercial guy, and Todd's been an old friend of mine for a long time, and he said, "Oh, I have this great thing we're gonna do, and I want you to set this look for the HBO part of it, and then come on the boat with us and shoot a little bit of B-roll." Well,
it's a boat ride. You made it sound like you're going yachting, right?
Yeah,
you're not yachting.
I mean, I think maybe a couple days into it or 3 days into it, I was like, what did I get myself into? What am I doing? But then I look at these guys, and just the, knowing that they're going winter camping and going to climb Bertha, I was so humbled, and I was just like, shut up, Osier, So Dan, you tell us about what it was like to be on the hill.
Yeah, I mean, productions are inherently challenging to begin with, and then kind of removing all your outlets and resources and all that sort of thing kind of gets pretty challenging pretty quick. And sleeping in a tent, and it's it's definitely quite a bit more steps and quite a bit more challenging out there. We're also in a national park, which took away drones, which makes our jobs a lot easier and takes away generators, so we didn't have power in that sense. So we had to bring a full solar system to be able to charge all those things, and those batteries don't like to charge our batteries when they're cold. So like putting bottles of hot water in Pelican cases, trying to get these batteries to a temperature where they can like keep our systems running. And once the weather was grim for a while, but once it did turn, it did stay sunny for a while, so that made our jobs a little bit easier. But yeah, I mean, we were moving a lot of equipment in the mountains. My angle for the main event day took 3 of us to get it to location. It was over 100 pounds worth of gear, and my angle was from high camp, so it was 8 hours with really hard snow and really big backpacks and 4,000 feet from camp. And it was big effort for sure. And just like that was kind of our one main big action day, but just the rest of the whole production and everything around that is a lot of steps to it, and it's hard for sure.
Can I be Captain Obvious too and ask how then the aerial shot was?
So because we weren't allowed to use drones in the national park, but we could use a helicopter. And Todd and Riley were based in Haines, and they were getting deployed via sat phone. I would call them, like, all right, this is a good time to fly in, and they would
just enough time for Todd to get out of the hot tub.
Yeah,
right?
exactly, exactly. So then they would fly in and steal the show with the aerials, because they're pretty magic for sure.
That's the first time I've seen it on the big screen, and the cinematography of it and the aerials, and B. Dan and Leslie and everybody on the Jeff Wright on the hill were just it's just beautiful. I just love it so much. Yeah, really nice.
Yeah. Now the other cool thing we did with this project, with the whole series, was we hired a composer. So all 4 films have original score, and that really, we've done a bunch of stuff with score, but usually mixing contemporary music, but we wanted to commit completely to that. And so that was a really amazing process, and we flew to LA, and I was watching the film with an orchestra recording that whole composition live was a really pretty wild thing, and I think it adds a really cool layer to the film, and we're able to like really use the music and the soundtrack to carry the viewer into like the tone that you're supposed to be feeling while you're watching it.
Now, speaking of the viewer, did you take a different approach, knowing that this was HBO, that you were going to have to speak not to the snowboarding ski subset, but you're going way broader with this, right? There's a lot of information you have to do in a you don't want to alienate your core, but you also want to convey a compelling story that Mom's going to be able to share at the water cooler on Monday, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I think we have a good mix here at Coast of like pretty core action sports film, and this certainly being for HBO and a broad audience. When you're creating it when you're capturing and in post, you really are thinking about that broad audience and making sure there's enough, we call it like pedestrian information, to be able to understand the story. We don't want to overdo it with that explanation, but trying to just make sure that someone who knows nothing about this can watch it and enjoy it. So it's a fun part of the process.
Can I ask Griffin about exposure? I mean, as a viewer, it just seemed such that the exposure off to skiers left just seemed. Would you say that kind of ranks up there in probably one of the most harrowing descents?
It was just a really generous camera angle, actually. It wasn't so bad.
Smoke and mirrors.
Shit.
I knew it.
Not back in that.
No, it was one of those things where you're eyeing it up, and you're like, we're pretty far away. It's probably wider when we're up there, and you're going up it, and you're like, this is pretty narrow, actually. And the worst part was like the best snow on the face was like further skiers left. So the more you kind of were willing to hang it out there, like
which had an overhang on it as well, right?
Yeah. That was where the major
that was where you really didn't want to go. So it was just this like feathering, down that plank section, and as far as exposure goes, like it was probably as real as it gets, I'd say.
Well, rated R for real. I think that's what you guys said.
Yeah, mom was not stoked.
So where, to be fair, then, where would you rank this accomplishment and experiences of all the ones? You have volumes, but where would this one sit?
I think the approach to the whole thing, the way that we did it from the ocean and how, like, I guess, natural and, pure, so to speak, it was, like, it makes it just in a different category almost. Like, every other project you're taking some sort of shortcut, and, like, that was pretty, like, honest, whatever, 10,200 feet. Like, you earned every step. So, I mean, definitely in the top 3 overall, but for a lot of different reasons.
Very cool. I asked this question probably way too many times, and those that have been lucky enough to go to Alaska, we know how big it seems, especially when you're at the base of a glacier and you're looking up and you're surrounded. But the question is more pointed. What do you do as a cinematographer to convey the vastness? Are you doing anything differently, or like in terms of like, hey, this is a cool shot, but I have to tell what the story that's behind them.
I mean, yeah, we're pretty lucky that the Earth is just so beautiful, and like in a studio, you got to like make every beautiful thing yourself. Like you're really kind of, but when we're in the mountains, it's really just get to capture what's there, and that's really gorgeous and beautiful, and kind of just get to be there and experience it. But as far as capture goes, I mean, drones are great tools, but obviously in this case we have the GSS and the helicopter, and yeah, there's nothing super special for sure, just kind of basic shooting characteristics, but yeah, it's just so special to be out there and get to capture what's available to the eye.
It's hard to convey into words how big it does. Safe to say, you both shot, so many mountain ranges around the world. Where would you put Alaska and why? It does seem like it's in a league of its own.
Yeah, I mean, scale's a big conversation up there for sure. It's like when you're looking at a mountain, you're like, I mean, yeah, like, is that face 10 turns or 50 turns? And it kind of takes for someone to be standing on it to kind of figure out that scale. And every range all over the world is different. That's like one of our big objectives getting into a new area is kind of like figure out how big stuff actually is. And like how we're going to shoot that versus climb it versus ski it is all like it all kind of comes into a factor on how everything goes.
I'd be remiss too if I didn't ask Griffin with Chasing Washburn in terms of things to come. What can we expect from that? I know people saw the trailer here, so he's the gentleman behind the whole the mystery hunt. So tell us what we can expect with Chasing Washburn.
That's a great question, because I'm still like, I think we're all still kind of wrapping our heads around it. The odds that we actually found something, I think when we started this project, felt so slim, and then we actually did find something, and we kept it a little bit of a secret for a while, and then released the news a couple weeks ago, and that's when it kind of was real, and you're like, wow, this is a project that I think is going to resonate with a lot of people, and there's so many threads from the original impetus for the project was finding this treasure, so to speak, and there's a certain cool factor from that for sure, but like the science that went into it and the science that is going to come out of it as far as knowing how this glacier has behaved over the last 85 years when really the records only go back as far as satellites for like 3 decades. It's going to be a pretty like multi-faceted project and just, I think, a really amazing story.
Yeah, and just yesterday we had the scientists up in Canada pulled exposed film out of one of the cameras, which is super duper exciting. It's obviously pretty mangled, and but there is some good technology that we're hoping we can actually recover some 87-year-old imagery that's never been seen, which would just add a whole other super radical layer to the whole thing. Did you know that?
Yeah, I did. I just talked.
I figured you did. You're on the text chain.
Wait, what?
So that's you're some of the first people in the world to know that. So outside of our crew.
And now they know. Now they know. So you alluded to it, with all the ideas. How much more remote do you think you can even go? Are you running out of areas, or is it still like?
No, I mean, I think as we said, in the process of research and in the process of having all these incredible locations that we weren't able to get into while we had to get this thing moving and going, there's, we had researched China heavily. We researched Greenland heavily. We researched Nepal, Pakistan for climbing. So we got a lot of trips where we got really deep into pre-production, let alone the Rolodex and list of ideas that Griffin just had, one-pagers on. So there's still a vast undiscovered planet to explore.
Yeah, so Griffin, I know you had a zone that you intended and wanted to go to. What zone was that?
For this film, or like?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, there was a peak in China that was pretty, it was unique in the sense that it was the standalone massif that rose out of the desert that was just, spectacular to just look at. And the first time, sometimes you just come across those photos and you don't know where you're going to see them, whether it's just in a random magazine or I think I was actually at a slideshow at a sales meeting somewhere really randomly from a local photographer, and like he put this photo up and I was like, found him afterwards. I was like, where is that? Like, we need to talk. And like, that's where that idea came from. And I think that just speaks to like always having your eyes and your like creative sense on you and like being ready for inspiration no matter where it may come from.
so I know you and all the TGR team, you guys are used to accolades from the core community. Has it been validating in a different way by getting having people watch it on HBO, people that you would normally not be able to penetrate and get their eyes and ears and hearts? Maybe do you guys have some takeaways of some feedback that you've received from the series?
Yeah, I mean, as someone, I started TGR 28 years ago. We were dirtbag ski bumming. I was a commercial fisherman, and we pulled some money together and bought an old Vietnam era 16 millimeter camera, and started making action sports films. And so for me, I think all of us who work on this, HBO Docs is the top of the food chain, and so I think for all of us, we can say that like you feel like, oh, we hit it, we made it, and get people calling saying they saw it on the airplane, and so it's really awesome. I think Free Solo and Jimmy Chin really lit a fire under the adventure category to the mainstream, and so this is an extension, a continued extension, and it's really cool to see all these films that you guys come out and witness, to see them get that main stage and to get to share what we do with a much broader audience.
Well, now that you've done it, as fans, we was like, okay, and then now what's next? So we now we know that there will be more coming out from TGR. We look forward to it, and we all congratulate you on what an amazing, amazing series, and it's great to see it in its compiled form. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.